I see some familiar faces from other Force of Nature speaker series, so that's really exciting. I also want to thank Outdoor Fest. Sarah is in charge of that. We have Angelica here representing her today. But yeah, Outdoor Fest. We've partnered with them since the beginning of the Force of Nature campaign and the Women's Speaker Series here in New York. So it really was a great partnership. They really have their finger on everything outdoor in the 5 boroughs. So it really worked out well for both of us to kind of work together for this whole thing. But a little bit, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the Force of Nature campaign, if all of you guys aren't completely aware of kind of how it started and everything behind it. So the Force of Nature campaign started off in April of this year. And it really was a way to make, women feel like it wasn't just a men's only in the outdoors, and really get them comfortable being in the outdoors and know that there were other people around as well, other women that, like you two, like Kareemah and Kade, like there are real Force of Nature women out there. They have inspirational stories, and we can really get inspired by their stories as well. Since the beginning, REI has actually allocated $1 million to nonprofits that support women in the outdoors, which is really exciting. There's also over 1,000 events that support women in the outdoors, especially like these. Also outdoor classes, which is really, really great. I've actually been a part of them. And it's a really great way to get women comfortable and have the support that they need to really get to feel comfortable doing anything outside. Mountain biking, stand-up paddleboarding, we have a bunch of classes like that, so it's really great. So I want to really say that the Force of Nature, like I said before, it is a way for us to hear inspirational stories from women just like you two that really encompass the Force of Nature campaign and hashtag Force of Nature. But it's really a way for us to look at ourselves and really get to look at our stories and see that we really are a Force of Nature as well. All right, so no further ado, I want to hand it over. If you want to say a little bit about Outdoor Fest, we should all really, know about the partnership between the two, and then we'll hand it on over to both Kareemah and Kade. Okay?
So those of you that are familiar with Outdoor Fest already know that Sarah is sort of the brains behind Outdoor Fest. She's the founder. She could not be here sadly, so I am in her place. And she likes to send me often to come to these events because I'm sort of like her best case study, I guess, of pursuing outdoor activities in New York City. So I'm actually from Colorado, and Colorado, as some of you may know, is really known for outdoor activities, but I actually was just a complete outlier. I didn't do much in the outdoors, and I actually didn't like doing outdoorsy activities, so I'm just, it made sense for me to come to New York, and I felt like this place made sense, that, it's the city, and I really liked urban living. But I was connected with Sarah about 4 years ago through Outdoor Fest, teaching yoga for her events, and through her company, and through all the events that she puts on, I actually became a lover of outdoor activities in New York City. So it's perfect that we work together now, and she works with a lot of great organizations such as Force of Nature to basically educate and give opportunities for New Yorkers to do more activities in the outdoors. And there are actually a lot of opportunities that most people don't know about. So that's what Outdoor Fest is. It's really great. There is a yearly festival every year that happens it changes from year to year, but it's usually a combination of free events and ticketed events. There's camping, there's rock climbing, there's stand-up paddleboarding. I have done all of them, and I can say it's really fun. So that's Outdoor Fest. Without further ado, let's continue with Kareemah and Kade.
That's Kade.
Hi guys, I'm Kade. Yeah, that's Kareemah.
I'll be the appetizer to this entree. Kareemah and I have known each other for about almost 4 years now since I started working there. And Kareemah is definitely a force of nature, and I'm just trying to like catch up to her. And the other amazing people that work at Boulders and in the climbing industry and in the outdoor industry overall. So here you go. So I have 5 younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 6. I just have to state, both same parents. You know, we're good. And we grew up in New York City, born and raised, and have always been here. And I don't think we're planning on leaving anytime soon. But my parents started traveling with us since I was a kid, and it stopped after the financial crisis because things happen. Take a little break and try to reevaluate the things that we want to do. But I was very, very fortunate enough to have been part of my dad's idea of just trying to get his kids out there. And my parents we are West African, and my parents were born in Guinea, and I was born in New York along with my siblings. So we never really had that outdoor adventure that they always had on their day-to-day life. So being able to see the world, go driving, go on road trips with my family, and know that my friends my best friends didn't explore or even get the chance to have that for just a short period of time, or even for vacations or trips, and their families were also immigrants and they didn't get that opportunity. I felt blessed and honored to be able to learn and to grow and take those adventures with my family. And after it stopped, I was a little disappointed and didn't understand why, as a kid, you know, we don't think about things like that, the world and all the things that are going wrong. So being able to be with my family and learn and talk to them about the things that are happening in the world, and being pushed also to go outside. We were never allowed to just hang out, play video games. We did at times when, you know, they were sleeping, but when the sun was out, my mom was just like, go out, hang out by yourselves, go hang out with your friends, do whatever you want, just don't get hurt and don't do anything bad. And you know we did. We ran around the parks, we walked for 10 blocks in directions that we weren't even allowed to go in, especially late at night, but we were so comfortable because of how we were raised, and being able to have that opportunity that no other child, or none of my friends or none of my brother's friends had the opportunity to take, was amazing and really impacted the way that I saw the world and the way that I wanted to enter my teenage and adult life. So I pursued psychology, tried to figure out what I want to do, how I want to make my mark in the world, and I thought, well, what's the biggest thing that's been happening in my life constantly? Outside of traveling, I've always been around kids. Having 5 younger siblings, it was natural. I didn't think of anything else outside of that. I said, okay, I could work in school, I could be a guidance counselor, I could work in the outdoor industry. But thinking that as a kid, I thought, well, there's not that many women in the outdoor industry. There's not that many colored women in the outdoor industry. So is that really an attainable goal? And where can I find the resources to make sure that I was able to do that if I really, really felt passionate about it? And it took me a little while to figure out how that was going to happen. And then I finally met some friends. I, tried to join a different couple of groups. I was on the dance team in college, and then I met some friends in a sorority, but they weren't super diverse. It was a lot of Asians, and even though they were trying to go into the multicultural path, it wasn't getting there 100%, but I still decided, I'm gonna get here, I'm gonna try to help support them to grow, to be better. I'm gonna go join the dance team, I'm gonna try taking classes that I never thought I would be able to take before, and try to help there and figure out what I can do to bridge the gaps. And after meeting one of my really good friends through the sorority, she worked at Boulders and told me about a job opportunity. Started off working in the HR department, and figured out within a year. I was like, nope, standing behind a computer is not my thing. I can't do it. But there was this weird bond that I had with working Boulders, and I couldn't leave. And the interesting thing was that I didn't climb for a whole year. The whole time I was there, I was like, nah, not my thing. I'm dancing. I don't need to be involved in this weird sport. And also, I guess not feeling comfortable too. I was working there and I didn't see any familiar faces. And I think that it took me a little while to realize that that was one of the things that held me back, because I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't think that I was strong enough. I was surrounded by a lot of men, especially. So it's like, okay, well, not really something that I can do or that I see myself excelling at. So I just strayed away from it and climbed when there weren't that many people around, and just tried not to pursue it at all. And then after I became full-time and I got more comfortable in this space, and after meeting a couple people, like between Kareemah or members of the BOC crew, Brothers of Climbing, Peter has been working there for years. And if you guys have been to Brooklyn Boulders, everyone knows him. And he told me about Brothers of Climbing and what their mission was and the things that they sought out to do and the stories that he has seen and has gone through himself. It reminded me of the struggle that I had internally with trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to pursue a field in the outdoor industry and education especially. And I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher in a traditional setting, especially in New York. The education system is so messed up in so many different levels. And I thought, what are the two things that are still a passion of mine? Traveling, being outdoors, and then working with kids. So throughout the 2.5 years that I was working there, I was still working in the youth department. And I realized, well, this is something that I can do. And after meeting Nicole, who is the senior product director now, she was the youth programs director there, and told me her mission. And during the interview, I knew that I wanted to work under her and continue the mission that she had personally with the youth team. And that was to challenge the minds of the kids outside of just the traditional educational setting. And with my own personal goal of bringing diversity in, I thought this is where I want to be. So left the HR department, left the operations department, and solely came into youth. And through even just within the first year of working there, we all have worked together to create lesson plans that are challenging the kids' minds, that are bringing the traditional classroom setting into a unique climbing environment, and really challenge their minds about politics, about the changes that are happening in the city that they're living in. I went to the march a couple months ago, and I found one of our climbing team children, Molly, and she was there at the march with her parents, and then saw a couple other kids who are also on the team who were there with their class. And to see those kids on their own make those decisions and want to bridge the gap and learn more and be a part of those big movements was another just affirmation of why I'm here and the things that I want to do with this department and with this company overall. And eventually the end goal is to be inside schools, build walls, and help those people. And then my own personal goal is to include diversity in there. Climbing is expensive, and it's getting more expensive in New York City alone. And the question is, how can we get those kids who are outside hanging out with their friends, out on the streets, to make sure that they're understanding and that they're growing and that they're part of more than just what they see on TV. It's like, what can they do with their friends and with other people and just learn as much as I have within the four walls that we have here, within the other facilities. How can we all just change their minds? A lot of people come into the gym and see the kids and they're just like, man, there are kids all over the place. I don't know why they're here, but they forget what if that was you? Did you have the opportunity as a kid? What about a friend or a parent or a cousin that you saw that didn't get that chance? Why can't you be a part of their growth? Helping them on the wall, approaching them and saying, well, what is the problem that you're working on? How can I help you? This is what I did instead. And making sure that we are taking the time to help them grow, because at the end of the day, they're going to be where we are. So the main reason why, outside of my own personal goals, that I'm here is for, I'm a part of Brothers Are Climbing, which is BOC, and Brown Girls Climb. And the two are amazing, amazing groups. Brothers Are Climbing started a few years ago with a couple of friends who met at Broken Boulders, and there's this thing that colored people do. We come into a room and we look at each other, and once we realize that we're the only ones in the room, we're just like, hey, not even anywhere, it's just like a nod, and it's like, okay, I understand where you are, you understand where I am, we're in this space together, we're not alone. And they went through that and got to know each other and decided, what can we do to help to make people more comfortable in the space that they're in, no matter where they go. And then they started Brothers Are Climbing, and it's been an amazing movement that has spread across the country. And we met a couple of people, and one person in particular was online. Bethany started this online group on Instagram called Brown Girls Climb, and she would just post random things, and we were tagged randomly. I was tagged, and she tagged and commented, and finally started a direct message within all the people that she's tagged before, and said, hey guys, I'm here in Texas, and then I moved to Washington, and I started this group, and I saw that you guys were doing this. What's going on? What's everyone's story? How do we get together? How do we bring more diversity in the climbing industry, in the outdoor world? And a couple of months ago, we all decided, well, we know about climbing festivals and all these things that are happening. What can we do to really, really, really make sure that people feel comfortable and they can start getting these things going out and where they are, and know that there are people around them without having to be in the same space with them, so we can all nod at each other and smile and know that we're not in this alone. So they have been planning, primarily Mikhail and the other members of Brothers Are Climbing and Bethany Climbing Festival, to bring more diversity and get everyone together, talking, hanging out, and climbing, of course. And it's happening on October 20th to the 22nd in Horse Pens, which is going to be freaking amazing. It'll be the first one ever, and we're super, super excited to be doing this. The Cliffs is sponsoring it, and they also have a scholarship. So if you're interested, definitely reach out to them. We are trying to get everyone in, and don't feel shy. Send an email, info@colorthecorrect.com. We're always looking for more people to join, and also spread the word, bring friends. And I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable if they're not of color. And the point of this and the groups is not to be exclusive. We want to be inclusive. We want to be diverse. We want everyone to be comfortable and feel a part of this movement, because that's just the end goal. We don't want to feel like everyone is this like super tight-knit clique, and it's not at all. We all share the space. This is the outdoor world. No one is supposed to be excluded at all. Yeah. And there's just some photos. That's Bethany out to the on my right, your left. There's Peter and Delache, and then a couple other awesome people and things that are happening. But yeah, that's where you can find all the information. You can register at colorthecrack.com. You can go to colorthecrack.com. Like I said, info@colorthecrack.com is where you can ask questions. Mikhail and Bethany are taking lead on that. And then you have BOC Crew is the Instagram, and Brown Girls Climb is the Instagram as well. And then you'll find me on the bottom, Humble Beginnings, with 3 S's. Because clearly 2 people got ahead of me. Yeah, I know, right? Too many. It's because I changed my handle like 7 times.
Question.
Oh, of course you do.
Why is your Instagram Humble Beginnings?
Dude, I had so many weird ones, and I think it had to go with like the phases or the friends that I met. The last one was like something related to my sorority. But the reason why I have Humble Beginnings, my friend chose it for me, which was awesome because I clearly had a hard time choosing one. But one of the things that she's told me was that we've known each other for 4 years now. I've helped her go through a lot of different changes in her life. She's 22 now, so you can imagine all the shit that they go through. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but. And she said, she moved from California, and she said one of the hardest things was finding people who cared without having to, have ulterior motives and take away from people and like their own personal things and their goals and literally their soul. So she felt super comfortable to have finally met a group of people, including myself, that would support and just help them grow. And she said I was a super humble person, and this was her fresh start. So she's like something along the lines of like beginnings and being humble. All right.
Anybody else?
Thanks.
What about the Cliffs person? What's the scholarship thing?
So the scholarship deadline for Going to Prague is on Wednesdays. We just extended it today, so if you want to go, they'll give you a scholarship to help out with your flight, your accommodations, climbing, things like that. And that deadline is going to be Wednesday, September 6th. So you still have plenty of time to sign up and fill out the scholarship application, which you can find at colorprague.com. And then hopefully you'll get support in going so you can attend this awesome event.
Oh, awesome. You said all the colors, like caramel, beige, yellow,
Even some
brown,
green,
some
and I
mahogany,
don't like green.
green, purple. Okay.
Alright, and I'm gonna pass it off to that lovely woman sitting over there, Kareemah Batts.
Taking her seat. Let me see if I can. How do I do this? Is this not what we listen? Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Kareemah.
Hi, Kareemah. Oh my gosh.
So the title of my presentation is Outdoor Diversity and Access, a case study through experience. I don't know if you noticed this, but I have a lot of diversity going on. I'm just saying. I think that's why they picked me. So I'm going to do something that I usually never do in presentations, is I'm going to actually talk about my past, because I feel it's just really important about how it shaped who I am and how I handled the things that ended me in the outdoor industry in the beginning. So these are the Rents. Okay, this is them getting married in Harlem in 1964.
Birds.
Oh, the birds. What?
Beautiful birds.
Okay, that's them. Aren't they cute? They're so adorable. I stole it from their photo album. They're actually my uncle and my aunt. So I had a very interesting beginning. Not as humble and as Kade's. I was born in 1981 in Manhattan Hospital, and no one knew I was born, actually, until my uncle, that guy, really dapper guy, he got a phone call, and in that phone call, it was a nurse from the who was at the same church where they got married, that they were members of, and says, "Your wife's having a baby." And he's like, "That's not funny. My wife can't have children." And she's sitting right across from me. So my mother had been missing for a few years because she got into, I guess someone called a cult. She had a troubled history of mental illness and schizophrenia, amongst other things, and joined various interesting groups. And nobody had seen her for a few years, actually. And back in those days, if you didn't put a father on the birth certificate, then social services and other people would come toward you, and she didn't want anybody to be inquiring or finding anybody, so the father's at work, and she gave his name. And that's the by chance part, right? That someone going to the church actually was like, oh my gosh. So that is how I was found. And then, and she was found as well, and they were able to get her help and put her someplace where she can get some help. But while trying to adopt me, which took a little over a year, they found out I had a brother who was born exactly a year and a month before me. So they had to get him first, and then me. So that is why this is my earliest baby picture. That's me, 19, 20 months. Just after they were able to adopt me, and they took me to the Sears, right, over the Flatbush. Everybody knows about that Sears photo, right? Just smile. So, now my aunt and uncle were born in the 1930s in the South. My uncle from a very small town that had probably 1,200 people during that time in his town in Blacksville, South Carolina, and my aunt was from Durham, North Carolina, and they both met when they moved up to New York City. They raised me pretty well. I actually went to high school in this neighborhood at John Jay High School on 7th Avenue. Went to a private school, a group 7-day Adventist. And one of the things that was very interesting about that, because they came from Southern country beginnings but also lived in the city, they were very much outdoors people. They were very much planners. We had a garden that I had to tend because they were much older. They were probably in their 40s by the time they adopted me. So being that they were born in the 1930s, and my mom was the youngest of 7 and she was the oldest. So there was a very huge age gap, which is probably why I'm wearing that dress in the first place. But I was very blessed to have an uncle who loved fishing, and I was also cursed because he loved fishing. So a little bit of both, because nobody likes to get the hooks in their fingers. No one likes to the smell of fish usually, or having to clean them at a young age. It wasn't something I was excited about at that time. And we also did go camping, and we also had the opportunity to experience other states. We didn't just do New York. We had an RV that attached to the Chevrolet and the Lincoln town car, and we literally rode across the country. They also put me in something called Pathfinders, and Pathfinders for 7-day Adventists is kind of like Girl Scouts. You get badges for tying knots and making fires, and I did that for quite a while. My pops was a, what do they call it? Like a troop leader. So that's me at 9. Lots of attitude. Love pictures. Fast forwarding out of that, I went to Hunter College, I went to school, and during that time I kind of separated myself from those sort of outdoor activities. And I was all about, hanging out, being with my friends, going to parties, going to brunches for no apparent reason because it had liquor there. And I lived a very full and exciting and happy life, and I did a lot of amazing things and a lot of regular things. And one of the craziest things happened to me is I went out for my birthday, and I always had this ankle pain because I was on the soccer team, and I thought, oh, this is just a regular ankle pain. And I went out dancing, my foot swells like it usually does after dancing, I'm like, fine. But then the next morning, it didn't completely go down. And it turns out after a lot of doctor visits and a lot of tests that it was actually a very rare form of sarcoma called synovial sarcoma. How rare is synovial sarcoma? So synovial sarcoma is a literally a young adult cancer. It only, and maybe like a 1% chance that it doesn't, people under 30. That's literally who it goes after. Between the ages of 15 and 30, not even kids, 15 and 30. That is the window of receiving this cancer. The second thing, it's 3 to 1 male cancer. Right? You're like, And then, on top of that, it counts for like 1 of every 1 million cancers diagnosed. So like 1 million people get diagnosed with cancer around the world today, and 1 of them could have synovial sarcoma. So that's how rare it is. And then on top of that, a 70% mortality rate. For people who don't know what that means it's a 70% chance of you dying from this cancer. As soon as you're diagnosed, you're stage 4 and it grows ridiculously fast. So that's me, the day of surgery. Yes, I've always been like this. So my best friend took that picture. And that is the tumor. I don't usually show that, but that is the bad boy. So that is the day I went into the surgery room. That's huge, right? I know, it wasn't that big 4 months before that. So very big, very invasive, and literally took over my entire ankle. I went through amputation and surgery. I went through fertility treatment to preserve my embryos and my eggs. I went through a couple of months of rehab, which is like, that's the hand cycle. They make you, I don't understand what this is. What does it have to do with that? I don't get it. But this is the picture I have from me in rehab, so. I mean, like, it looks good, right? You're like, so, and you know, that's me when I like cared about putting chemicals in here. This is actually pre-cancer treatment. So what happened is you had to get an amputation, your leg had to heal in order for you to have cancer treatment, because your white blood cells are so low that you cannot heal, you can't get cut, you can't get sick, you can't get anything. So I had to go through the whole series of being an amputee first, still like knowing that this cancer is growing inside your body over the course of months, and you're like, well, limiting my chances again, right? So I survived. Well, yeah, that's why I'm still here 6 or 7 years later. So, I mean, the one thing that I had to deal with is, one, the reality is, after all that, that is the reason why my hair is not chemically relaxed as a person of color. Because I put so many chemicals in my body, the last thing I want to do was literally add any more chemicals into my body. And that's just like a really huge thing for me. I colored my hair for like a half second when it started growing back. And I was like, I don't like it, no. I don't want to do that. So one of the things that was really great was I had a lot of wonderful people around me. I had boyfriend, I had cousins, I had friends that supported me through this entire journey, and other cancer survivors and fighters, some of who are my best friends today, who I still see. The whole Stupid Cancer team, I just hosted them like last Saturday for a meetup for some people who are going through cancer treatment and trying climbing for the first time, so that was great. And life after cancer has been like, really cool. Like, look, there's me with people. And, oh, there's me again, doing what I like to do. Actually, no, those pictures are actually from before cancer. The ones before that you saw with me in a race car, that was actually after cancer, so fooled you on that one. So I always make this term, Kareemah BC, for Kareemah AC. So if someone says to you, oh, when's the last time you went to Alaska? I was like, oh, Kareemah BC, that's Kareemah before cancer. Because when you have some life traumatic situation happen to you, there is a kind of like a baptism. So the negative sides or the challenging parts of this, I would say, is you're no longer who you were before. It's a plus and it's a minus. It depends on how you deal with it and how you capture it. And in this, I was no longer a black woman from Flatbush who like really loved to party, I tried to regain that post-cancer. It was like, it didn't feel as fulfilling as it did before. But going outside did. being outside, being in nature, being away from being able to clear my mind is actually what did that for me. And I was going through a lot of depression. I was drinking a lot. That's picture left, or yeah, picture left. I mean, like, look at that style. I was doing a lot of drinking, like day drinking, like finding reasons to drink that went beyond brunches. Like I had brunch on Wednesday, and then like I figured if I added fruit to it, that was like food. Like it was really interesting place that I was in, and I even considered not getting up in the morning, knowing that mental health had run in my family. I was really scared about how I was feeling. Having a mother who was schizophrenic, and supposedly my grandmother who also had some issues as well, just like that. I was very afraid of me developing those same things in my adult life in my 20s. So I talked to some other cancer friends to see, how are you feeling? What did you do? And this one girl says, oh, I just came back from a kayak trip. I was like, kayak trip? We ain't got money for a kayak trip. Have you seen my $100,000 hospital bill? Like, how'd you do that? She says, there's this program called First Ascents. And First Ascents is a young adult cancer survival program for young adult fighters and survivors. And they take you out on these adventure trips. It could be surfing, it could be camping, it could be kayaking, and I chose rock climbing. And I chose rock climbing not because I've done it before, because I thought it was the least likely thing that I would be able to do. That's literally why I chose it. Because then I said, well, if I'm not able to do this thing, then I can't be even further depressed because I'm just like expecting not to be able to do this thing, right? So it was a group of us, 12 of us out there in Estes Park, Colorado Mountain School. We were there for 2 weeks on scholarship. We learned all the basics, the belay, even self-belay, multi-pitching, like super crash course on things that I found that it takes 6 months for other people to do. And it was just very intensive all day, every day for 2 weeks straight. And we climbed Eldo, we climbed the St. Mary's Reservoir. I did the Bastille was our graduation climb. And it was amazing. I was the only amputee there, but I wasn't the only. There's a blind guy there, there's a bunch of different people, and the best part about it was sitting around the campfire and being able to share similar experiences with other women with cancer and other people with disabilities. And that was like my newfound thing. I was like, oh, I want to live life. I'm going to go back home. This has brought new life to me. So I went back home, and I was like, I'm going to go to work. And I also want to find out how to keep doing this climbing thing. How do you do this climbing? Like, where do I even find that? I live in Brooklyn. And, I didn't know, like, there was a bunch of places to go climbing. And I walked back into the store in which I bought all my stuff for this trip, which is Eastern Mountain Sports, which is no longer open here in the city. Still exists, guys. It's not. I bought something online, like, last week. And I applied for a job. And I was really afraid that person would say no. He ended up being my supervisor, still my friend now. He does like Traverse Outdoor Fitters, is that what does he do? You know Traverse. He's the one that rents the gear, Sam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Alright,
yeah. So I didn't let them know that I had an amputation. I had a very normal gait, so I was able to wear like, some long pants, and then not until a few days later, I had like a bad fit and I was limping, and he was just like, what's happening? And I was just like, oh, my leg, it's good, I just need to take it off and put it back on. And then I just like, no, I just told him I have to take it off and put it back on, like what do I do? That's not normal, that's not what everybody else does. And then I had to reveal I had an amputation, and I was very scared because one of the things that I found is that people tend to change their face and their judgment after they find out. Those who don't know I'm an amputee before seem totally fine. And then everyone who finds out that I'm an amputee after is very concerned about the stairs the whole time, or I was climbing these stairs with you like last month, like what's the difference? I was climbing this ladder, putting up these crash pads before, what's the difference? So I had a new limitation to my outdoor experience. Sorry. I forgot I had slides. Just like I'm talking about myself again. So one of the things that I was not prove myself just as a person with a disability, but also as a woman. There were no women working in the climbing department of Eastern Mountain Sports. There were no plus size women working at Eastern Mountain Sports. There was no black women working at Eastern Mountain Sports. Definitely nobody with one leg, and one leg in climbing is not necessarily synonymous 8 years ago with, you know, rock climbing. So, yeah, so I find myself constantly having to prove myself. So there's like a lot of YouTube videos of me scaling things if you look out there. There's a lot of photos of me scaling things. Just like say, look, I just went out, this is me in Peterskill. Like you see, I really do this. This is a real thing, this is me. You know, like trying to show myself at work all the time. And after a long time, somebody had called out sick from the department. Andy was working with me at that time. Andy is a route setter, worked with us for a long time. He was working in that department with me too. And Chris, who I think works at MPHC, used to work at Cliffs. He also was my coworker in the climbing department. And I could say that though I love them right now, they weren't extra like thinking that this was something that I could do. And one of them called out sick and I pulled it together, especially when Sandy happened. They had no choice. I was the only one that could get to that store. And all of a sudden I was permanently in the climbing department. Oh, she actually knows what she's talking about. Oh, she knows what these carabiners and these pulleys do, okay. You know, like, so I had to earn my space, and I know as women, you know, that's something that we feel very often about, feeling we have to prove our knowledge base because unfortunately, societally, it's not the first connotation because it has to be learned from early. And one of the things that I had to definitely learn to do was not be angry at them, because everybody's life experience is completely different. And it's not that they're wrong, they're just unknowledgeable about the other sides of living. And so it's really important for us to be as patient as I had to be over the course of 3 years working at Eastern Mountain Sports in order to have my place and earn it, but not be afraid to say that you deserve it and you earn to be there. So those two pictures, one on the left is me on Betty. I think that's the first or the second pitch. And the one on the right is me at Peterskill. I forgot the name of the area. It's like K something. I don't know. It was a V1. Don't get excited. I just like that's all I do. So now let's talk to now that you know enough about me and you know where I'm going and where I'm coming from, let's talk about shiz that really matters. What is my responsibility now? So I got the bag, right? I got the black person, the plus size person, the woman thing, the disability thing, right? So now what do I do with this knowledge base that I have? How do I make sure that the person behind me has a less obstacle period of experience in joining the outdoor industry? Now, outdoor and diversity is a big thing, and sometimes people think of outdoor or the word diversity as one thing. And it's not just about color, it's economics, it's sex, it's a lot of different things. People of color is one. The urban professional, which if you're a born and bred New Yorker, you totally understand that as well. And as Outdoor Fest and Angelica was saying before about, you know, showing people that there's outdoors right where there are. Like there's you know how many state parks there are in the city of New York? Like in the city, there are state parks where you can go camping. And so many people don't even know that. Our youth, as Kade had brought up, and people with disabilities, which is like my thing. So people of color, the outdoors are not as diverse. It's obviously on its way here. There's been a very strong movement over the last year. And the majority of the trails have not been walked on by the Indian American. There's a new generation of people that need to get away. We are actually working more hours than we ever have before at jobs for salary pay. A lot of us could say we're overworked. I really don't know nobody that I know clearly only works 5 days a week. I just don't know them. If they do, maybe they can teach me how to do that, because I know I don't. And as far as our youth, it's not necessarily always socioeconomic, but just education about knowing what is available for them. Because there are actually foundations and groups and programs that exist, but they don't know it exists. A perfect example is I manage the Brooklyn Boulders Foundation. That's my paying gig. Keeps food in my belly. And one of the things that I have to do is sit on the community boards in this neighborhood for the Parks Department, for schools and other neighborhoods to represent Brooklyn Boulders on this community side. And there's a project development about a few blocks away. And that project development didn't know that they can come in and climb. They walk by it every single day. Every day. We had a recent flooding and we all came together to talk about that. And they were like, you mean I can come in? I can't pay $40. I'm like, we have like we give you a discount, like a scholarship. You can make a day where it actually could be free. And we could do like 25 kids. What? Huh? They just don't know that there are people out there that would give them this opportunity. And it's for us to make sure that they have that information. As far as people with disabilities, we can hark back on my experience of the limitations set on them by our societal thoughts and things that are placed in movies. Like, a lot of people expect me to walk like a pirate when they find out I'm an amputee. They're like, oh, you're an amputee? I didn't know. You don't walk like one. I'm like, what do you mean walk like one? So how many years have we had computers? 50, right? Like 50, 60? How many years have people been losing their legs? Oh, since the beginning of time. Okay, all right. So if we haven't made any advancements in that, then there's something wrong with us. As far as outdoor demographics go, I'm sorry, I'm very emotional about that. Our participation in outdoors activities by demographics. And I pulled this off the interwebs, so you know it's true. I'm assuming, because I'm like, that's kind of me. So in ethnicity, it's 11% African American, 7% Asian Pacific, 70% Caucasian, 7% Hispanic, and 5% other. I'm not sure who the other is. Does anybody have a guess on the other? Sometimes I identify as other. I'm going for that. And how can we have the solution to this, right? We can diversify our visuals. What does that mean, diversifying our visuals? Does anybody want to, because I talk a lot, I would love to hear someone else's voice. What do you think I mean by diversifying our visuals?
Adding more people of color to marketing.
Right, right. And what would you say would that look like to you?
I mean, just online, on Facebook, on Instagram, on websites, making sure that all different ethnicities are represented.
I like her. We should hang out. I could use a second beer, so.
And hiring more people of color.
Ooh, she's good because she made sure there was no bread on my burger, so we're down. And number two is identify. So sometimes I'm going to give you a story. January, I went to my first outdoor retailer, which is a trade show for outdoor industry. And it's Salt Lake City. And the demographic of Salt Lake City, I can tell you, it's kind of like the demographics of the outdoor graph that we just saw. Actually, maybe a little slight bigger scale. I got like double takes as I walked down and I knew it wasn't because of my leg, like that kind of thing. And they had some workshops and some panels about women in the outdoors and diversity in the outdoors. And it inspired a lot of other brands to take this initiative. And that's where this year is coming from. And that was the first time I actually felt black in a long time. And I had this conversation with Kade before, and you were like, what do you mean the first time you felt black? I was like, well, I'm in New York City. And sometimes I like, especially in the climbing industry, because we're just so welcoming, we're so wonderful people, we never even talk about, like, that doesn't even come up. It's like, oh, did you catch that crimper? It's not like, so, do black people crimp really well? Like, that's not gonna have a conversation. Like, so I go there and it was just like, oh shoot, I'm black. I've been carrying this disability thing has been like so prominent, I mean, you really can't miss this. It glints in the sun, like you can see it from a mile away. But there I was like, holy shiz, I'm black. I'm like, New York, got it. Okay. that's kind of how it is. So they're trying to identify themselves, these industries are trying to identify who is the diversity. So I'm glad that I was able to explain that to you, so you can tell them later. And involvement, they're trying to figure out how they can get involved. And we talked about a few ways we can get people involved. One, education, making sure that you're diversifying your visuals at your job and suggesting them to your workplaces. You know, being more conscientious. Because sometimes even we forget, like I said, I work in the climbing industry and I forget when I am the only black person in the room. I just know when I'm the only one-legged person in the room. And so even me, I don't even think about diversifying the visuals as far as people of color. I just want to see some disabled people up there, right? So I have to be more conscientious as well. Oh, let me get some youth in there. Let me get some dudes with blonde hair, some dudes with black hair, some dudes with dreads. You know, like I want to get everybody in there. And then there's brand investment. So what do I mean by brand investment? Brand investment means that we ourselves have to be conscientious to invest in brands that we know that are going to stand up for those belief systems and support them, right? So, and we're going to conscientiously tag and tell them what we want all the time. A good example is this. I'm also a plus size woman, right? And I gotta go hiking, so I gotta find clothes. You know who don't got my clothes? North Face. Ain't no afraid to say it. Put on the film, I don't care. North Face ain't got my size, okay? Matter of fact, North Face sizes one size smaller on their numbers versus their sizing than everybody else. I know, because I used to sell the clothes for a living, so I know that. I go to REI, I see 1X, 2X, 3X, Columbia, 1X, 2X, 3X. My top don't match my bottom. And if the average size of America is 12, and I'm a hippie person, and last remember, the guys like the hips, so why do I have to lose them? And I want to go hiking, I should be able to wear the clothes that I want to wear that fit me and my giant boobs. Thank you. Now, one of the things that happens, and this is not my son, everybody thinks it is. That's the other thing that how I noticed I was black, because whenever me and him were in the same place, they think I am his mother. So a perfect example of visuals, diversifying, and brand involvement, is a good example is Kai Leitner, who just turned 18 last week. He held the title last year as #2 in the world, #2 in the country in rock climbing. He's from Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is not a place of rock climbing, or even white people, or Asian people, or young people, black people. It is mostly a low-income area, and his major sponsors are Adidas, which is one of the largest sports brands in the world. Started in Germany, where swastikas come from, so there you go. Brand involvement, brand investment. And, and he's a black boy. What? So this is the bag. This is the other bag. He's not disabled, unfortunately, I know. So he's really, really tall, and he's a professional climber, and it doesn't fit, so. And there's other organizations out there that are supporting putting those diversity in, and they're outwardly approaching brands. Sometimes I feel like we talk about the problems, about the issues, and we're not talking about the solutions, so I want to make sure that you guys are aware of the people who are giving us the solutions, okay? Or at least assisting in that manner. Outdoor Afro is like the first ever black group in all of the Outdoor Retailer Conference I got to find out this year. They're like superstars. And they have chapters here in New York City. If you go to meetup.com and you look up Outdoor Afro, you can find one in every city in the United States. They have training. They accept everyone. But yes, it is a black-centric group because a lot of people of the socioeconomic and skin colors that don't have access to outdoors or even know it exists, like our fellow New Yorkers. Mentorship is really big too. You can actually find mentorship programs, including the one I partly manage called City Rocks. City Rocks is a mentorship program that's been around since 2010 by the Brooklyn Boulders Foundation. It's actually their first program. We partner with 4 New York City high schools, and we have currently 75 mentor pairs. No, you do not have to be a member of our gym, which I opened that last year. You don't have to be a member of our gym to be a mentor. That means you get to climb for free, for giving your time to someone else. We do free learn the rope class, free lead classes that you can do with your mentee. You can do anything from just hanging out and talking and climbing with them. A lot of these are first and second generation high school students. So it's really important to have that influence in their life, especially what's going on now in this country, to let them know that they are accepted, they're loved, and that there's people out there to guide them who are young professionals like yourselves. So why mentoring? Why is that a big solution? Research shows that mentoring helps kids who are academically and socially at risk. Many of us probably had mentors in our lives, whether officially or unofficially through a program. And they tend to stay in school longer, they go to graduate, they enroll in college, and they develop more positive attitudes and behaviors. I already said all this stuff, so I'm going to skip it because I'm so long and I haven't even gotten to my program yet. You can look at that at bkbf.org. I'm just going to make it fast. BrooklynBouldersFoundation.org if you want to learn more and sign up for this semester, which is about to kick off soon. So what is adaptive climbing? Why did I choose that name? One, I'm not a creative person. I'm a resourceful person. So I didn't come up with anything cute. The second reason is because we were the first one of its kind. Nobody else was doing it this way. What do I mean by that? So yes, people with disabilities did go out climbing before me, right? And there were programs that would take someone out. It would be like a one-off trip, part of some other program for people with disabilities. What was different about this one? This one was about bridging the gaps and creating a bridge between society of what people thought about people with disabilities. Taking my own experience from working in the outdoor industry and putting it into the forefront. So that people didn't see, oh, there's a person with a disability, I'm gonna have to climb. No, it's like, oh, look at that badass athlete. So, if you were to go on our website or look at our Instagram, you notice that when we portray those people with disabilities and the volunteers on Instagram, there's no sappy, crappy music. You know what I mean? There's no like violins, unless we didn't produce it, because we can't control that. And there's all about promoting and garnering independence, but also having them accept assistance. So adaptive climbing is actually not about the person with disability adapting. It's actually about all people adapting to each other, meeting in the middle, and using climbing as a catalyst for that. It started in Brooklyn Boulders independently, and I used Brooklyn Boulders Foundation as a 501c3. And then 2 years ago, because it just got ridiculously too big and I needed a life, I was like, I'm just gonna put it underneath there so you guys can do all the paperwork. Because I'm lazy, so. Here is hopefully a short video, because I don't know how much time we have left.
What is adaptive climbing?
What is adaptive climbing?
Let me think about the answer. The location changes. You have to basically adapt
To your own physical abilities.
But it's probably a lot more than that.
In a literal format, adaptive climbing is for people with physical limitations or ailments. You gotta start thinking outside the box, and I think that's inherent to climbing. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and that's sort of what makes the whole sport or lifestyle beautiful. Even though physically, yes, I'm lacking a limb, in my mind it's also like every climber adapts on every route they climb, because it's very rare, especially for example between different genders, that I see a man and a woman do the same thing, not because one is any less strong, it's just different body types.
My name's Emily, I'm 32. I have right-handed braces, which is a form of cerebral palsy. I remember when I was learning how to boulder, I literally could not move from one hole to the next because I was kind of trained so much on my CP. As soon as I stopped thinking about it, I was able to top a rope. One of the reasons why I like adaptive climbing groups so much is because there are so many people with different disabilities, and we all bring something different to the table. The 4 categories consist of limb difference, sit climbing, neurological, and visual impairment. Within each category, there's subsets. Neurological will have 2 subsets, as well as visual impairment may have different subsets. And then you have sick climbers. All the climbers are in wheelchairs, so they basically campus the wall.
Though there is an adaptive climbing group that climbs at BKB, climbing here is climbing. I'm on the same wall, I'm on the same ropes that everybody else is, every other member, every other able-bodied person, and I think that's fantastic. It's totally breaking down social barriers of sensitivity and coddling people with disabilities, and just letting us bust our ass, fall, have fun, have a blast, cut, and just go through the experience like everybody else does. And that's what I'm all about, full inclusion.
Well, their motto is anyone can climb. And it's true. I mean, look at me, I climb, and I have pretty serious disability. I have ataxia. I've had it all my life. But it doesn't matter, because now I can climb, and I'm 44 years old and I'm still climbing, and that's a good thing.
The 2 big words in disability are access and inclusion. I feel like if you provide this sort of the same kind of access for everyone else, then not only will more people excel when they wouldn't have, it would just be a better society as it would just be more diverse, and really everybody's experience is very valuable. I would say I crossed over from being partially sighted to blind when I was about 19 years old. Over the past year or so since I've been climbing, I've definitely been paying attention to what's underneath my feet. For instance, definitely also has changed the way that I move around and maneuver spaces. I, as a person, want to just be doing what everyone else does. Like, I walk around this gym and nobody bothers me. I'm just there with everyone else. I can't say I have that experience anywhere else.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. Go more to the right with your right foot. Right.
I would say adaptive climbing is making a route work for you, no matter what you have or you don't. That doesn't mean it's only a victory if one gets to the top. It takes courage, just show up and try something new, whether you're considered disabled or not. And whether I send the route or not, who cares? If it's a sweet line, just do it.
Okay, that's my 2015 love story. Just to give you a little forward, because that was 2015. That guy is he was a policy analyst at JP Morgan, and then his involvement in adaptive climbing kind of opened his own mind. He's been disabled, this wasn't his first time. But meeting different people with disabilities, meeting other volunteers, meeting other climbers, he was like, I need to do something more than just live in Midtown and work at JP Morgan. So now he actually is the accessibility coordinator for the Department of Transportation. So, and Emily is still an audiologist and a member of the gym. She's there literally every day. Adam's still an asshole in climbing. He's competed. It's an inside joke, don't worry, he's a really nice person. And Wale actually switched jobs too. He now works for the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities as the housing coordinator. And mostly climbs in the Queen's Gym, that's why you guys never see him. But moving on, thank you guys for your patience, because it's a long conversation, isn't it? It's very long. And this is another one. This one's shorter, I promise.
I'm a Brooklyn girl from Flatbush, so the last thing anybody goes to say when you're growing up in Flatbush, Brooklyn is, hey, let's go rock climbing. Well, in 2009, I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer called synovial sarcoma, which led to amputation of my left leg below the knee. Adaptive Climbing Group is a program that allows access to the sport of climbing in all aspects, indoor, outdoor, and competition for people with disabilities. We started in New York in the Brooklyn Boulders Brooklyn gym. Different cultures, disability, races, ages. So I've heard people who've said, I never had abs before, or my upper body is so much stronger. What makes it incredibly interesting is the integration that Adaptive Climbing Group has created in the climbing community that wasn't an existing thing before. Everybody knows one person or is related to someone with a disability. And now we have something new that a whole family can take part of, whether they have a disability or not. How insane is that?
I think that said everything I said in a shorter way. Maybe I should just play the videos, huh? That one was produced by this lovely volunteer who does like all the training videos at Harvard. And she was just like, I'm gonna do one for you guys for free. And I was like, free? Sure. So we have programs in all the Brooklyn Boulders gyms, which is Chicago and the Boston area, and of course here in New York City, but that's where we started. So that's home base, because I'm a Brooklyn girl, right? So I want something with Brooklyn in the name. But we actually are not limited. We actually, for the last 4 years, have held monthly sessions in the Cliffs of Valhalla. We also, I travel around the country and do trainings for other gym facilities, the front Salt Lake City this year, downtown St. Louis this year. I might be going to Cinder one in LA, but that's not my choice, that's Adidas' choice, because that's my sponsor. And I'm open to going to any facility or any area in which there is not already existing adaptive climbing program that wants to create that access. And I will refuse a place if it's not accessible. I will also refuse a place if I don't believe they're going to carry on the community, because I could be doing something else with my time, like brunching or boxing or something. And I'm very strict about that. And that's how we have to be in our diversity and inclusion. We have to say, this is our standing ground, this is where we're standing, this is what we're doing, and we have to stick to it. Like, I want to see more women in management positions and outdoors. Then stick to it. Do never waver. Don't be like, oh, well, I guess I could work here because I could use the money. Like, really stand by it, because nobody's going to take us seriously if we don't really stand by what we say. Okay, we're almost done. This is the end, y'all. So, as I said, we currently operate weekly and monthly programs in 3 states in various gyms or any place that we need to go. And I have a team of over 20 volunteer climbing leaders, and the gyms, including the Cliffs and Brooklyn Boulders who are in the room today, actually offer a free membership for the 12 hours of minimum volunteer time a month to join our leadership team. Just letting you know, we have 2 lead volunteer positions available in New York City, which is our communications lead and our youth lead, that Christina from the Cliffs used to. She's going to California tomorrow. She used to be our youth leader, miss her already. And you can go to adaptiveclimbinggroup.org. If you want to look up New York specifically, adaptiveclimbinggroup.org/New York. If you want to look at like every crazy special event we have, including our camping climbing trips coming up next month in the Gunts, and you want to be a volunteer rock climber and camp out with us and do yoga with us and boulder with us and all that other crazy cool shiz, you can sign up to do that. Registration closes September 2nd. So if you go to adaptiveclimbinggroup.org, the main website, because I made it myself, so it sucks, just to let you know. I am the only employee of this foundation, so. But the main page has a website like calendar, and it has everything going on in the country from Chicago to here to wherever there's a special event or anything going on. Tomorrow at Brooklyn Boulders across the street over there, we have a quarterly volunteer training session. We only do it every 3 to 4 months. And we train you in everything from disability etiquette on and off the wall, which trust me is very different. And we also train you in how to use a wheelchair harness specialized system for people with limited mobility. We teach you how to guide people who are blind climbing. So if you're just interested in learning that and then taking it back with you into your climbing world, to your family, your friends, you should definitely come up. You can actually sign up on that website and register. Cheryl, who was like very briefly in that video, she's teaching and I'm teaching it. And then of course, please follow us on Instagram so we can be popular. I would really, really appreciate that. And if you took any pictures or video tonight of me and you think I look cute in them, please tag us so that I may repost it, because I will. And then my personal Instagram, which I didn't put up there, which now I'm inspired by her, is Her Hopness, HERHOPNESS. It's my personal Instagram, but it is very like, it's just like not just about adaptive climbing, because I feel like that engulfs my entire life. So, and sometimes I do cool things, because I'm now also, besides championing for people with disabilities, I'm also championing on body consciousness. And I took a health journey this year, and I like looking for workout clothes in my size and figuring out what workouts I can do and not do, and posting a lot of my findings, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from other women, or what to wear, like what looks good, like I look cute, what am I gonna wear tomorrow? That makes me feel comfortable and cute as a person with a disability, right? So I post a lot of that stuff too, so that's kind of interesting. What other special events we have? We have volunteer training tomorrow, our next cliff session next month. I think that's about it. I'm not doing anything. What am I? Oh, I'm going to Scotland. Got it. World Cup. Climbing World Cup, Scotland. So we are fully sponsoring 2 athletes on our national team. So our national team is very different. It's not about who regularly participates in our program. It's about the competition side. And I manage the social media for the international paraclimbing. And I serve as a leader in the competition field, because I was the first female paraclimber in a USA comp back in like 40, 50 pounds ago, 2013. Actually, you helped me train for that. I remember that.
Yeah.
I was so afraid to boulder. I was like so scared. It's like, I don't want to fall. So that's really important, because what's really big about it is the first time that we had adaptive US team contingent compete as a member of the US team in a World Cup series, like ever. And there's 4 Americans going. We're sponsoring 2. One, Phil, who's here from New York. You'll see him around either at the cliffs climbing or Brooklyn Boulders climbing. And we recently shot this week a very big campaign. I cannot talk about the details of that, but with Adidas. It's gonna be global, it's gonna be cool. With Nina Williams, that was awesome this week. And CNN is following our other climber, who's in Tulsa, who's a visually impaired climber who can send V9, which probably most of us in this room cannot, or any. So CNN filmed him yesterday, and will be following us to Scotland, and we'll see what that story looks like. So that should be pretty interesting, so look out for that this fall. All right. Okay, so that's all I got. Ladies, you want to come up here, close this out?
Yeah, cool. Let's just get a round of applause for both Kareemah and Kade. Thank you. Inspiring, both of you. Seriously, your stories are fantastic, and I know it's definitely coming from something that's really close to home. I think all of us probably know BKB pretty well, so it's really nice to hear some great stories. Thank you all for coming. This doesn't mean it's the end. Please feel free, ask these ladies any questions you want. Let's also get to know each other. That's really why we're here. We want to get to know each other as well. This is a great group of people, and we could all really use each other for getting outside and getting that inspiration.